So I recently booted up the old PS2 to play the 2008 classic Kagurabachi the musical, based on the movie of the same name. It's honestly such a good game and holds up even more than the novel in some parts, and when I got to the end, it's such a great ending for a story. By the time you're finished with the game, it makes you realize that along the way, you have become the true Kagurabachi. So then I had to ask myself, does the manga that came out do the story any justice? Before anything else, the answer is yes, this is Kagurabachi. You know, I like to talk about manga that just came out. Or more likely you wouldn't know that because then the videos end up getting scrapped if I don't put them out in 3 weeks, which I do often. Kagurabachi is at 12 chapters, but let's be real, it's probably 13 by the time I upload this because I am part snail, so if I make theories and stuff based on knowledge from chapter 12, don't shoot me please, I'm innocent. That said, I had a thought. Why not talk about Kagurabachi for a little? I mean, I already made a video on it and I had some questions, so why not do a bit of a follow-up since I've gotten some answers to these questions? The people have to know the answers. No, I am not just making a video as a crutch to make a better Kagurabachi review. Who told you that? I just want to talk to them. Alright, strap in, do the things you need to do. I don't know what they are, but look at the subscribe button, press it, and let me tell you about Kagurabachi. That's a good question. Here's my answer. Kagurabachi is a manga by Takeru Hokazono. It came out relatively recently. The first chapter sorta leaked early and everyone was making memes about it being the best thing to ever exist. That's how I found out about it. It's probably how most of you guys found out about it. The memes were amazing. So being the content creator I am, I took the opportunity to make a Kagurabachi video. But since it's also me that we're talking about, I was like 2 weeks late and it was there though, it's something. See, it's something. And if you haven't watched it yet, why? Just curious. Do you hate me or something? Because that's what it sounds like. Anyway, as I said in the video, it's a revenge manga. The quick summary is that Chihiro is out for revenge against a group who murdered his legendary swordsmith dad, whose name I refuse to pronounce, and then the group of murderers took all 6 of his 7 legendary swords. Throughout the story, we find out that Chihiro has the 7th 6th legendary sword and he is determined, no, he is motivated to avenge his father. It's not anything revolutionary from the synopsis, but to be honest, it's a pretty interesting story so far. Under 20 chapters and it's already set up a lot of big players in the setting quite well. There's a lot of things we don't know, but there's a good number of things that we do know because that's how explaining works. We didn't know, now we know. The story was pretty normal edgy revenge manga business for most of its run until like around chapter 7 or so, when it introduced some really dark elements that I won't go too far into to avoid spoiling too much in case you haven't read, which I ask this a lot, but why? What are you doing? Setting that aside, in my last video I had quite a lot of questions and a lot of them have been answered to an extent. The dad is definitely not alive and we know he was killed in order for the sorcerers to acquire his legendary swords, and we pretty much know who those sorcerers are. I'm still wondering if Chihiro having a 7th legendary sword that wasn't taken is because his dad was forging one in a secret location before he was killed, or is it a more convoluted reason? Still though, his sword is so sick. It has a bunch of abilities that involve spawning goldfish. I want to say the ones we've seen are Enten, Black and Nishiki. I'm assuming the sword is imbued with the spirits of these goldfish his dad took in being in quotation marks because it was really just Chihiro taking care of them. It was 3 goldfish of 3 different colors and Chihiro's sword summons the previously mentioned goldfish when using its abilities. But who knows, am I right? So it looks like his entire home was destroyed and I assume the goldfish all died in the process, and the sword is where the goldfish's souls are just carrying on with existing. Maybe Chihiro is the one who imbued the sword with the souls. He was training to forge swords too, so who really knows? But enough about the swords, let's talk about the swords in the fights. That was my best attempt to segue into talking about the fights, and man, the fights in Kagurabachi are so cool. I was already reading week to week, but on my full read-through of the series before writing this, I was pretty gobsmacked if you will. Cause dog, I love sword fighting in anime and manga, and this manga knows how to give us great sword fights accompanied by amazing art. In just a few chapters, the author has mastered how to and makes a habit of having the most important exchanges between characters take part as larger panels, sometimes even taking up the entire page. This happens a lot more in the fights. The detail that goes into them is really good. Especially the ones that show Chihiro as an angry, shadowy force of nature. He's just so cold in his fights. So far, my favorite fight is the latest one between Chihiro and Sojo. It was the first fight we got against another legendary sword user, and it was a step above the fights with sorcerers. The legendary swords have such crazy abilities, and this fight is a perfect one to set us up for what's to come. Chihiro was at a disadvantage in this fight in every area except having more experience with his sword and having knowledge of all the other legendary swords. But I think the fight did well to respect both of the fighters by not having Chihiro lose his first major fight, but also not letting a character with as much power as Sojo turn out to be a total jobber. The fight ends in a no contest because one of the big reasons Chihiro was fighting for was in danger, and at the same time Sojo had to retreat because the magic police showed up, and he's probably seen JJK, he's avoiding getting jumped. But now we have something to look forward to in the way of a run back when they meet up again, and I can't wait. It's hard to judge a fight in a manga because a lot of the motion is dictated by how well you can use your imagination to bridge the panels together and get an idea of movement in between the panels. And in that regard, I have to give it up. The manga has done pretty well. I don't claim to be an expert in any of this, but in my personal and very unprofessional opinion, the panels flow well into each other pretty smoothly. The manga really could be the next big thing for Shonen Jump. Who knows? What characters? No, I'm not joking. What characters? Okay, I'm joking a little bit. It's too early to be expecting too many memorable characters, but so far the only characters who have any characterization are Chihiro, Mr. Shiba, Mr. Azami, Cha, Sojo, and Cafe Girl? We haven't been given much time with the other characters to really form an impression of them. Of course, where I left off in reading, we were just introduced to the team and they're only just now jumping Sojo in chapter 12. Every shonen has to have a team, and we just got ours. They were the ones to force Sojo to retreat during his fight with Chihiro, so I figure they're not pushovers, but to be honest, I feel like they were done dirty in their introduction. Mr. Azami's introduction was so badass. They showed how much of a dog he has in him, but this group hasn't had any showing whatsoever. Their first potential opponent ran away, so we still have to speculate on whether they're good or not. They probably are, but I'd like to see them throw hands first. Though I guess it's unfair to say that because they literally about to start a fight where they show whether they deserve the hype or not. I mean, they are jumping the nigga, but what good are rules in a real fight, right? Now, a character I didn't expect to like as much as I did is Chao. When she was first announced, I immediately thought she was just Anya with a wide vocabulary, but well, it's not entirely incorrect to say that, but she is a really good character, and the story just... her story makes the world a lot darker than it was. Basically, she's part of a special race with a really good healing factor, and they were driven to extinction because of a superstition that was untrue. By the end of hearing her backstory, I was already ready to adopt her myself just to make sure those bad sorcerers don't get her. Like, where she is right now in the story is so heartbreaking. It's enough to make someone as manly as me almost cry. I wiped the tears though, so you can't prove I did. Other characters though, I like them enough, but there's no one stand out other than the characters we haven't met. One of the sorcerers who killed Chihiro's pops, I guess we met in chapter 1 though. The dude with the sturdy face, but there are more in his group and their silhouettes look sick, so my interest is piqued. Sorry about that, I'm a One Piece fan, so it's ingrained in me that silhouette equals cool character design incoming. There really is a chance they end up looking like the most bland, uninspired, generic characters ever, but you know what? I'm gonna get my hypes up all the way up for no reason. As for Mr. Shiba and Mr. Azami, I like them, but I'm gonna need a little bit more from them. Mr. Shiba we've spent a lot of time with and I really like him, but you can't accuse him of being in the forefront of the plot or anything like that. Mr. Azami is also great, but we just met him, so he hasn't really had a lot to work with except for when he effortlessly beat those two sorcerers who gave Chihiro a little trouble. I say effortlessly, but he did end up messing up his arm, but don't worry, it's a manga, so he got better. It's Kagurabachi, the animation is peak. It's Kagurabachi, the voice acting is peak. It's Kagurabachi, the music is peak. I started this video with a whole bit about the PS2 Kagurabachi game and how the manga holds up to it, so I guess I should give my answer now that I've gone through my thoughts about all these things. Basically, I think the manga has the tools to genuinely be an amazing manga. However, there's no shortage of anime and manga that do have all the tools, but they're all wretched and no vomit. It's easy to fall into the trap of being just another generic story among the sea of stories in Shonen Jump, but so far Kagurabachi seems to be doing its own thing. Chihiro feels like a breath of fresh air compared to other quote edgy and vengeful characters. Despite being prone to aggression and being cold and distant, he's still very much just as caring as he was when he was looking after his dad. He sounds dismissive, but he did drive Cha to all three of those food joints to, I guess, give her a full meal. He's shockingly empathetic, which I don't usually expect with these Avenger types. I thought when I read the panel where he talks about making sure to wake up with fresh hatred that he would just tunnel vision to one thing. I was pleasantly surprised. He's not Sasuke Uchiha, and I'm happy. Shonen manga tropes are great, but they're not the gospel to live by, so I love it when an anime or manga mixes it up for once. Granted, being too different sometimes gets you cancelled early by Shueisha, but I think Kagurabachi's got this. And if it does get cancelled, you can come back to this video to tell me I was wrong. Of course, since it's not cancelled, you're contractually obligated to comment how cool I am, so go on now.